All right, let's dive in. The source material we're looking at today, honestly, it reads less like a dry financial analysis and more like a movie pitch for a sequel to a modern classic.
So, this book, When the Music Stops, has a really interesting take. It argues that the 2008 crash wasn't some kind of freak one-time accident. Nope, it was just the latest act in this long, recurring story that America keeps telling itself.
And the core idea is pretty simple but powerful. 4 times now, America has built this massive, teetering tower of debt, and then we've all just stood back and watched it come crashing down. I mean, look at this pattern. We're talking railroads, the roaring 20s, junk bonds in the 80s. It's always the same story, right? Some new, brilliant financial tool comes along. Everyone gets swept up in a speculative frenzy, and then boom, disaster. The tools change, but the pattern? It's identical. So for this explainer, we're going to zero in on the one we all remember, the big one, 2008. So how did they do it? How did Wall Street build the 2008 crisis? Well, it all started with just 2 key ingredients. 2 financial instruments that took a bunch of risky home loans and weaponized them into a global doomsday machine. Okay, this analogy of turning dog food into steak is just perfect because it gets right to the heart of how absurd this whole thing was. You've got Wall Street taking thousands upon thousands of the absolute worst home loans imaginable. We're talking the infamous ninja loans, right? No income, no job or assets. They bundled all this garbage together, and then, like magic, through some financial alchemy, they slapped a perfect AAA rating on most of it. I mean, that's the same safety rating as U.S. government bonds. The trick was slicing them up into these pieces, these tranches, with the idea that the risky bottom bits would absorb any losses and protect the safe top bits. The only problem? The whole thing, the entire bundle, was radioactive from the start. And here's the other key ingredient. A credit default swap, or CDS, is basically just insurance on a bond. Simple enough. But here, and you gotta get this, is the twist that blew the whole system up. You could buy this insurance on a bond you didn't even own. Think about that. It's like buying fire insurance on your neighbor's house, and then maybe on the whole block. Suddenly, you had a way for investors to make these massive, massive bets that the whole housing market would fail. It turned a potential house fire into a global inferno. So this is it. This is the playbook. A shockingly simple 4-step plan that a tiny group of investors used to bet against the entire world. Step 1. Realize the whole system is built on trash. 2. Buy the insurance, those credit default swaps. 3. Make sure you're targeting the absolute worst, most toxic bonds out there. And then, step 4, you just wait. So who were these people? Who were the misfits and outsiders, smart enough or crazy enough to use these tools to bet against the world? Well, let's meet the key players who pulled off what is, without a doubt, the single greatest trade in financial history. First up, you have Michael Burry. He wasn't your typical Wall Street guy. Think of him more like a forensic detective. He was this lone wolf investor who locked himself in a room and did something nobody else was doing. He actually read the documents. He discovered the crime scene while the party was still raging outside. And this email he sent? Man, it says it all. The loan level data is shocking. He saw the fraud hidden in plain sight for one simple reason. He was the only one who bothered to look at the actual evidence, the thousands and thousands of terrible loans inside these so-called safe bonds. Then you've got John Paulson. Now, if Burry was the detective who cracked the case, Paulson was the industrialist who built a factory to profit from it on a scale nobody could imagine. Get this, he didn't just bet against the toxic bonds that already existed. No, he went to the big banks and paid them to create brand new toxic bonds, specifically so he could bet against them. And the banks, chasing fees, happily built the very weapons that would bring them to their knees. And this chart really just lays it all out, right? You see the difference in scale. Burry was the pioneer. He was the first one through the door, proving it could be done. But Paulson took that idea and turned it into an industrial-scale operation, 20 times bigger. The result? A profit for his funds of around, wait for it, $15 billion. Now, for years, these guys looked like absolute fools. They were paying out millions and millions of dollars in these insurance premiums, month after month, while the housing bubble just kept getting bigger. Their investors were screaming at them, but they held on until September 2008. That's when the music finally, suddenly, stopped. And when it went down fast.
I mean, breathtakingly fast. We're talking about a matter of weeks. The very bedrock of the global financial system, institutions that had been around for a century, they didn't just fall. They vaporized, gone.
And it's easy to get lost in the big numbers and the Wall Street drama, but this wasn't just about numbers on a screen. The fallout on Main Street was absolutely devastating. This was the human cost, right here. Nearly 5 million families lost their homes, a staggering toll.
And at the exact same moment all that pain was unfolding, on the other side of that exact same trade, the people who bet on the collapse were cashing in on the single biggest payday in the history of finance.
So, in the aftermath, there were major reforms, new rules put in place, all designed to stop this from ever happening again. But the source material leaves us with a chilling reminder. This is a story we've seen before, 4 times in fact, and that forces us to ask a pretty unsettling question. When you look at it, the patterns of history, of human greed and fear, of finance, they all seem to rhyme, don't they? So the only question that really matters is, have we learned anything? Have we learned enough to recognize the tune and stop the music before it all comes crashing down again?